Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul. And before some of you ask, okay, Paul, you claim that you're a Catholic, but yet you started out your review with nudity. Aren't you, against that in the Catholic Church? Well, there's a difference between nudity and pornography. Nudity is simply how God made us, whereas pornography is art that is designed to entice, tempt, and cause people to have lust rather than appreciation. It's kind of the difference between, say, using money to eat versus using money to exploit people. But, of course, that's a topic for another day. The reason why I started out this Catholic review of the video game Gris for the Nintendo Switch is because the nudity is actually what got me thinking about what meaning do I find in this game, first and foremost. Because when I saw that, I was like, okay, the eShop says that this is rated E for everyone, so why does it have nudity? And then it hit me, because in every other video game that has nude art, it's used in a pornographic sense, or at least 99% of the time it is. I challenge you to think of another video game that contains nudity that's not designed to be sexually exploitive. So I began thinking about everything else in the game, and I was like, okay, well, there's a distinct lack of masculinity in this game. Most of the colors on display here are very traditionally feminine, and I say that with exclamation points, because while nowadays there's the stigmatism of boys like blue and girls like pink, well, in the old days it was actually the other way around, because pink is a combination of red and purple. Both were very masculine, passionate colors, whereas blue was for girls because blue is the color of tranquility. In fact, the Blessed Mother, otherwise known as the Virgin Mary to some other religions, is depicted in blue more than any other color, depicting this serene, pensive, loyal, feminine figure. Mary wasn't ashamed of being a female. She fully embraced it, but even more so, she embraced the role of true femininity, which is to submit themselves to the master, which is God, and ultimately, since sex is a reflection of heaven on earth, the husband is sort of symbolizing God in this sense. But let's get back to the game. So first off, the main character is obviously a heterosexual female, or at the very least she identifies as female, but could have a lesbian relationship. Thankfully this game isn't open to the interpretation, so I'm just going to pretend that she isn't. She wears a very traditional mourning dress for women. The color black is often used to symbolize death, but it can also symbolize depression or sin. It's possible that the woman herself is either dying, or someone else has died, or she's simply going through a lot of depression. My thought was that perhaps the depression she's going through is relating to something to do with being a woman. Maybe she hates the way she looks. Maybe she hates female-specific problems. Maybe she was sexually abused by a man. The game doesn't have any written or spoken lines of dialogue, but it gives us certain clues. There are usually a lot of postures of, when there's other statues in the game, they're usually of the woman in this repressive pose, usually the kind of pose that a girl would take when, she's been, say, raped and she's, afraid of getting close to anyone. But it's also the pose that either gender can take when they're in deep sadness. However, this sadness doesn't last. In the end, this nameless female protagonist uses her femininity as a way of not only coping with her identity, but also with her problems. First off, the first power that she gains is the ability to make her dress in the form of a block. This can be used to break open objects, and it can also be used to protect yourself from heavy winds. This is the resolute steadfastness that a true feminine is supposed to have. When God said to Mary, "You're going to be the mother of Jesus," without a man's help, any other woman would have been terrified out of her wits and said, "Nuh-uh, no way. I'm only 14 and I'm not even married yet, for real? But God was like, no, 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 everything's gonna work out fine. I'm gonna make sure that you can give birth even without a man. So she stood her ground and she said, your will be done. Just as when the black bosses try to get in the girl's way, she places her dress firm, saying, no, I am going to submit to the ruler. And even if there's not an explicit mention of God in this book, you could say that in a sense the black bird that constantly appears is sort of like an anti-Holy Spirit. Because the Holy Spirit is traditionally depicted as a dove, and I'm pretty sure all of us can agree that that bird is either a dove or a raven. Both were used in the book of Noah, when Noah was trying to figure out if there was dry land or not. Also, the Holy Spirit is symbolized as a dove because the dove brought Noah hope that there was an escape from the endless water, which, of course, I can imagine would have been very depressing. So this girl is looking for a way to receive reprieve from all of her suffering. At the end of the game, there's light that she goes into, possibly representing either the end of her suffering or she's accepted what's going on and has moved on to heaven. Also notice that the color of her hair is depicted as being blue. Again, it's that symbol of serenity. Also, all of the vocals are done by females. There are no male tenors or basses at all. They're all within the female range of singing. In fact, the last ability that the girl gains is the ability to sing and make roses and other types of flowers blossom. Flowers are very much a feminine gesture. You give a man flowers and he's going to be like, what do I do with them? Eat them? Whereas a female thinks of flowers as not only a nice gesture, but the rose in particular is deeply symbolic in Marian theology because oftentimes when the Blessed Mother has appeared, she's usually shown roses. Roses are a sign of fertility, of health. They usually only show up in the spring and in the not-so-wintry months. In fact, that's perhaps why this game justifies its color red. When it would normally be a masculine color, in this context, it's talking about purity. More so sexual purity, sexual fertility. The girl is willing to take the next step into bringing new life to the world. Hence why the more colors she brings, the more the world feels alive. The world is just dead when she's all by herself and there's no color. It's possible that she's found love and that love has enabled her to see a different perspective. So in the same way, theology of the body teaches that the beauty of femininity is in the female's, well, for one, the basic design, because, you know, the very first book of the Bible talks about two naked people running around in a garden, and the very first thing God says to them is, have sex. He doesn't try to say, well, do it when I'm not looking, or, like, make sure you're covered up. He just says, go out and have children. But he doesn't say, go and have sex for the sake of the pleasure. He says, be fruitful and multiply. Fruitful as in fruit tastes good, just like sex is a pleasurable activity. But the word and multiply is also there. So not only are they having pleasure when they're having sex, but they are also going to have children. Now, this game makes it unclear as to whether or not there are children involved in this book, or game. I guess you could call it a breathing book. Although there are hints of it. Oftentimes the girl will stumble across little creatures that she sort of treats like a parent. In one of the early levels of the game, when you're in this forest, the girl comes across this little rock. Now, the rock's gender is ambiguous, but since everything else in this game is feminine, we'll just assume that it's a baby girl. Now, the baby girl starts out being very hungry, so the girl uses her ground pound dress ability to knock fruit from the trees. Once the little girl is fed enough, then she's able to open a new portal to help the female protagonist proceed through the story, in the same way that a woman's role is fully fulfilled when she either has children of her own or adopts a motherly role, be that through adoption, be that through teaching. There are a variety of ways to be a mother in the Catholic Church. So this girl is finding her meaning in why God made her a female in providing the fruit, which is often a symbol for a woman's breasts, which are, mind you, in mainstream society, they're often this sexual object that are meant to be exploited, but the true purpose of them is to provide milk for the children, to feed them, because they're not able to digest regular food right away. In the same way that God didn't reveal himself right away, first he fed the people of Israel milk from breasts. In fact, that's one of the only images in the Bible that depicts God as female, is when he says, even if a mother may forget her child nursing at the breast, I will not forget you. And then when Jesus came, it was more of, okay, you guys have had your share, now it's time for the real food. Another ability she gets is the ability to double jump. Now, the double jump is pretty standard in platformers, but in the case of the female is generally portrayed as being graceful, like a dove in the book of Song of Songs. The female is meant to be elegant, meant to gracefully flow through the air. With the dress and with her double jump, the female is showing her agility, her gracefulness. It just, as hard as you might try, it just isn't the same with the male. The male is more about strength and dominance. The woman is that gentle, submissive, but at the same time energetic. She's grateful for the love of the man. But without the man here, she finds gratitude in identifying herself in what makes her a woman. Her voice, her steadfastness, her willingness, how she swims so gracefully in the water. Some of it may be very provocative imagery. I mean, pretty much every chaste man has had, visions of what a woman would look like swimming in the water without clothes on. Or they just envision a girl in a swimsuit. But the bottom line is that overall, my opinion, or at least my take on Gris, is it's a game about true femininity. Now, not radical femininity or a guy saying, well, I feel like a female, so therefore I'm going to be a female. This is a girl born a female that is coming to acceptance with the pros and the cons of having a girl's body. There are perks, and there are things that aren't so pleasant, just like there are with the male body. But I think a lot of times society thinks that the woman has it harder because of how much women have been ostracized, taken advantage of, and just overall treated like trash over the years. And Jesus came along and sort of started the grounds for the first true feminist movement. Not saying women are this superior race to men, or you can do anything a man can do, but more so to say, women, you are important in your own way. You are important because you are a woman, not because you are a human, but you are a female human. I think that's all I'm going to cover right now. This is an arty game, so I'm sure you could fill in the blanks yourself. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll come up with a better interpretation of this that's even more Catholic than what I just had. If you disagree with anything I said as far as how it's presented in the game, please let me know. Just, I ask that if you're going to argue with the Catholic point of view on nudity and femininity, you do so based on fact and by doctrine, not on your own personal opinion. With that, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you'll give Gris a try and that you will have a new appreciation for true nudity as opposed to pornography. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.